Dead server racks lean in the dark like tombstones in a precinct no one patrols anymore, their LEDs long since blinked out, casting zero light on the console that shouldn't still be running. But it is. The transmitter hums with the stubborn arrogance of a heartbeat that has already outlasted its coroner's appointment. The smell is hot metal, old vinyl, and the specific chemistry of a capacitor that is working too hard to stay honest. Outside those walls, 1966. Flesh and bone. In here, 2036, signal and consequence.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Saragucucho checks in at 80 degrees and partly cloudy. Winds are moving from the east-northeast at 6 miles per hour. We open on a structural challenge to our civic architecture, one Pauline Hanson recently amplified, questioning the very validity of domestic violence claims. This isn't a stumble, it's a deliberate weakening of the foundational beams.
Concrete facts reveal the exposure. The Australian Bureau of Statistics 2022 Personal Safety Survey consistently reports proven false allegations in domestic violence cases are under 2% of those reaching court. This rhetoric, despite the data, creates a chilling effect for thousands of individuals, making victims fear disbelief and further trauma within the justice system. As a viable alternative to this corrosive discourse, we could redirect public resources to bolster national community legal centers. Our chosen next move is to advocate for immediate implementation of the 2023 Family Court Backlog recommendations from the Attorney General's Department, expediting protection orders for affected parties across regional Australia.
Lex exposes how this statistically insignificant 2% becomes a digital smokescreen. It's a design flaw in the information architecture, meant to distract from the systemic harm affecting thousands. This is how ancient myths about culpability are recycled into new forms of control, dampening the signal of genuine distress and eroding the dignity of survivors.
Patching in a caller, the pattern auditor. You're on the signal.
This is the pattern auditor. Regarding Hanson's claims, if the argument hinges on false allegations, where's the empirical evidence backing that up in the Australian context? Does the Australian Institute of Criminology support those numbers, or are we just echoing political rhetoric? I need facts, not just noise, to understand the structural integrity of these assertions. Who ultimately bears the cost of this systemic degradation?
Coffee's cold. Doesn't matter. The signal is warm and the board is reading clean. Sharp discernment, auditor. Your question pulls us directly to the core of integrity, whether it's personal safety or institutional knowledge. Shifting focus, we see similar pressures on academic freedom. Next, we confront Julian Lisa's call to audit university courses covering Israel-Palestine, a move that pits oversight against the very autonomy of intellectual inquiry.
Cool down is when habits set. Swap the tiresome combo for a clean two-step people want to repeat.
Lisa's suggestion to the Royal Commission exposes the vulnerability of academic freedom across Australian universities like the University of Sydney and Melbourne University. It risks a chilling effect on critical research and teaching, potentially jeopardizing federal research grants and international partnerships if political interference becomes normalized. A viable alternative would be to reinforce internal university governance, fostering robust peer review and transparent curriculum development processes, which already exist. Our chosen next move must be to defend institutional autonomy, advocating for increased funding for independent academic research that resists external political pressures on curriculum content.
This audit proposal is a cultural vector for controlling narratives, reminiscent of historical attempts to curate thought. It's like installing a filter on the gig passport network that only allows pre-approved creative expressions. This move risks silencing dissenting voices and stifling the development of complex, nuanced understanding, particularly for students in humanities departments grappling with contested histories.
There's a caller on the line.
My concern is the practical impact. What is the real cost of such an audit, not just in dollars, but in academic reputation and the ability to attract top scholars? Who pays when a university's intellectual independence is compromised by external political agendas?
A critical audit of the audit itself. The cost of compromised intellectual architecture echoes far beyond the lecture hall. From controlling information to the ultimate breakdown of safety in our communities, the ripple effect is profound. Finally, we turn to Michigan, where 8 family members were found dead in a fire, some with gunshot wounds, a stark reminder of where structural neglect can lead.
This tragedy in Sterling Heights, Michigan, initially investigated as a potential murder-suicide, exposes the devastating consequences of unchecked domestic violence and mental health crises, impacting an entire community. Law enforcement resources are stretched thin, grappling with the immediate aftermath and the complex causal factors. A viable alternative to reactive responses is proactive investment in community-based crisis intervention teams and accessible mental health services, especially after the 2023 Michigan state budget allocated $170 million to mental health support, much of which hasn't reached local communities effectively. Our chosen next move is to advocate for direct, localized funding for these services and implement red flag laws that could remove firearms from individuals posing an immediate threat, preventing such catastrophic outcomes.
This event is a rupture in the inner compass, a raw exposure of the myth that home is always a sanctuary. It's a ghost in the machine of societal neglect, where the lineage of untreated trauma and easy access to weapons culminates in unspeakable loss. This scene carries the heavy burden for the Sterling Heights community, challenging their sense of collective safety.
We're now connected to a voice on patching in a caller. Go ahead.
These tragedies feel like an ultimate failure of architecture, a system that couldn't protect its most vulnerable. What's the true cost to public health and trust when preventable violence shatters a family and a community? Who ultimately pays for the collective failure to build resilient support structures?
The cost is immeasurable, auditor, a debt carried by the whole. We've been talking with the pattern auditor. Thank you for your sharp eye on the details, for helping us separate toxic residue from architectural signal.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Continue the signal at TogeeVision.com. Tune in, Sparks and Stories, Gig Passport.